The supreme, profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered even in hundreds of thousands of eons. Now we have seen, heard and received it. May we realize the true meaning of the Tathagata. In order to liberate all sentient beings, please generate the supreme bodhicitta. Next, we will continue studying the Udāna Sūtra. This scripture is now teaching the chapter on karma. Of course, between good and bad karma is probably discussed more. So previously, we also taught the chapter on discipline and the chapter on speech and the earlier chapter on attachment. In these several chapters, the main focus was explaining and teaching the principles of adopting and discarding. Whether in speech, in conduct, or in the mind, these three chapters teach mentally not being greedy, acting in accordance with Dharma and speaking truthfully. This is what was mainly taught before. Then conversely, if we create bad karma in conduct, bad karma in speech, and bad karma in mind, it produces various karmas. Such karma will bring various sufferings and retributions. This is mainly the principle taught below. Extremely hard to bear evil karma, deceitful weights and measures, harming others and instigating others to do evil. Such karma will definitely follow them and cause them to fall into the deep abyss. This mainly discusses, the commentary says, there was someone who gave short measure using scales to deceive and defraud others and frequently instigating conflicts and battles, such a village leader. Then they created all kinds of karma, meaning that possibly in the process of buying and selling they practiced some deceitful conduct, and also in the village or between tribes frequently instigating wars and killing many people. His hands were also stained with blood. These were two people creating extremely serious evil karma in this way. The Buddha, in response to these people, composed this verse. This is mainly what's being taught. Then here, explaining the literal meaning. Today I see that the literal explanation is also quite simple. The verses should also be quite simple. The commentary doesn't have especially extensive explanation either, so it should be relatively easy for us to study. Now, extremely hard to bear karma is actually bad karma, killing, stealing, and so on. The 10 naturally negative karmas, meaning these naturally negative karmas of body, speech, and mind. Now these negative karmas, and also deception, primarily involving lying, using one's own actions to begin deceiving others, including using measuring devices, scales, beginning to practice cunning and deceitful conduct, these people, and also harming others. We use various means, whether secretly or openly in broad daylight, all those who through various actions of body, speech and mind harm others. And also, although one doesn't do it oneself, one instigates others. One doesn't do it oneself, but orders others to do it, or advises others to create negative karma, or causes others to participate. Roughly, there are 4 types of conduct. The truly bad karma like killing, and also deceitful conduct and harming others. Actually here, others means making other beings suffer. Although the text speaks of people, it actually also includes other beings, any being. As long as one harms other beings, this is the content. Now, in this way, such karma, his karma will definitely continuously follow after this person, just like a black rope of bad karma has already bound this person. It continuously follows this person, so it won't let go. Therefore, it causes them to fall into what? causes them to fall into the 3 lower realms, the 3 evil realms of hell, hungry ghosts and animals, into an extremely deep, deep abyss, very frightening, continuously unable to attain liberation. So generally speaking, for true practitioners, being cautious about cause and effect, watching one's words and deeds carefully, this is extremely, extremely important, especially as taught here. If one creates this bad karma, the karmic result is also frightening. One will definitely fall into the 3 lower realms. So when we create bad karma, it may seem that I didn't personally kill or personally commit the act, but actually there are many methods, including in the Sutra on the distinctions of karma. It also says if we ourselves kill or advise others to kill or praise others for killing or rejoice in others killing, and also regarding one's own enemies when they suffer complete disasters, having a joyful mind, a rejoicing mind, and so on. All of these are a form of bad karma. It may seem to us that if we didn't personally do it, perhaps it's okay, but actually in our minds, in our actions, if we all participate in this, we will create bad karma. Don't instruct others to do it, and also don't rejoice in it. Knowing it's unwholesome karma, abandon it and don't do it. The Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma also says that in principle one shouldn't instruct others to do it and shouldn't rejoice in it. Not rejoicing is a bit, including some, for example, monastics. Generally, as a monastic, it's impossible for you to kill, but if you, including now on our videos, if one is from one's own ethnic group and another is from a different ethnic group, if in the process of conflict between the two, the other has been killed, I don't know if in one's heart there might be some joyful feeling. If there is, this bad karma is also very serious. So we often don't know these karmic consequences. Naturally, unknowingly, we may create bad karma. So after understanding these principles of cause and effect, one should frequently adopt and discard in the process of practice. Actually, among Buddhists now, quite a portion are especially cautious about cause and effect, and they understand this principle of cause and effect. This is very important. There are also some monastics or practitioners who, although they maintain the external form of a practitioner, in their hearts they don't believe or don't understand, or understand slightly but act completely contrary to it. Such phenomena are quite common. Therefore, past great masters also say that one should first start with the 4 common preliminary practices, for example, the preciousness of human life, impermanence of life, infallibility of cause and effect, and the faults of samsara. Starting from these to practice. In this way, practice will definitely be successful. If not like this, starting first with lofty ambitions, reaching for advanced teachings, and then coming down, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to tame one's own mind stream. Sometimes we see, including some Buddhists in large cities, especially some foreign Buddhists, they are truly especially devout indeed, but in some details, their words and deeds, I'm afraid, don't really understand the adoption and discarding of cause and effect. Such phenomena are quite common. Now, there may also be such cases, especially in the past, like many great masters from Tibetan areas or other places going to the West to teach Dharma. This spirit is very commendable, but most of them teach through empowerments, through teaching some instructions. But basic teachings, including the preliminary Dharma teachings, the Bodhikariyavatara, or the Shiksa Samukaya, such basic principles of Mahayana Buddhism aren't systematically studied. Although many people begin practicing Dzogchen, practicing Mahamudra, practicing Lamdre, but actually in their words and deeds, sometimes observers see clearly those involved are confused. when watching from the side, or perhaps regarding the adoption and discarding of cause and effect. They lack some concepts, lack some views. If they don't have the view, then there's no way in their actions. So in the future, when we have opportunities to teach and benefit beings, like the great masters of the past, we should first especially emphasize the adoption and discarding of cause and effect. If regarding the true principle of good brings good results, evil brings evil result, one generates sincere faith and then does it in actual action. It's not necessarily that one can do it 100% perfectly, but at least the general direction won't change, won't be wrong. This is very important. Otherwise, both self and others may fall into the three lower realms. That is an extremely frightening thing.
May give a gum duba ye, Lena Gandan Gamshi be Lenum Chis Minjir de Testa Jever.
If a person creates good karma or creates bad karma, such karma is not wasted and will thus bear fruit and result. So this verse the day before yesterday I had a little milk. Someone said I couldn't drink it, so I couldn't drink it. Then today I have a little tea, but it seems no tea leaves were added inside. It's especially clear, so pitiful. Just joking, it's very blissful. Truly, now everyone coming together to study Dharma, no matter through what means, for each of us among all possessions, I feel that studying Dharma, practicing Dharma, this is probably in a person's life the most meaningful, the most joyful, the most blissful thing. So no matter what kind of environment we're in, everyone also shouldn't worry or be anxious about some small things, some meaningless things. We should focus on meaningful things, including our pre-class and post-class recitations. From the heart, everyone having a joyful mind. This is probably also the most meaningful thing in life. So here we teach. If a person creates good karma, everyone knows this, no matter who, if they create good karma, of course, among good karmas. From the smallest, like the 4 common preliminary practices, renunciation, to the great, like bodhicitta or practicing dzogchen and so on, such good karmas are very numerous. Good karmas in practice and in conduct, or creating bad karma, relying on body, speech and mind to create bad karmas like killing, but in any case, whatever karma you create, this karma in your alaya consciousness transforms into another form. Regarding this aspect, various schools have different explanations. For example, Vaibhasika, Sautrantika, as well as Citamatra and Madhyamaka. Of course, in our study of the root stanzas of the Middle Way, the Entering the Middle Way, and many others, there are different viewpoints. But in any case, actually this karma, as long as you haven't used antidotes to destroy it, it will never disappear. Just like now on our computers, including on our mobile phones, transferring money to others, or deposits in the bank, withdrawals, if these aren't specifically deleted by the system, now they simply won't disappear. Deposit or withdrawal records from however many years ago all have traces. Our karma is also like this. As long as you deposit it, it won't suddenly disappear. And just like when we make a deposit in a bank, generally only that person has the right to withdraw it. Other people cannot possibly withdraw it. Only they themselves can. Other than that, it's impossible. Similarly, each person's karma is like deposits in a bank, stored in one's own alaya consciousness, stored by oneself. Then after storing it, when will it be eliminated? Good karma is like this, bad karma is also like this. Once causes and conditions ripen, you yourself can experience it. So this karma truly has very profound mysteries, including now some people say this karma is also false, illusory, like a dream. Sentient beings are also illusory, like a dream. Yes, from the highest realization, it truly is illusory, like a dream, but we probably haven't reached the state of being illusory like a dream. If we have grasping and clinging to anything as real, then this karma won't be destroyed. Eating is also illusory like a dream, but if you don't eat, you'll be hungry. So similarly, if you create bad karma, you'll similarly experience the result. So regarding this karmic cause and effect in between, it won't disappear. Some people think that when our physical body is destroyed, along with the body, one's karma will also be destroyed. Actually, it's not like this. Regarding the mode of existence of karma, we should look at related Buddhist scriptures which also teach this. Previously, what we translated as the karmic force of sentient beings will not be destroyed even in 100 kalpas. When causes and conditions ripen, its fruit will definitely mature. Actually, in many treatises and scriptures in the Sutra of 100 Karmas, but I previously translated the Sutra of 100 Karmas, and in our current Sutra of 100 Karmas, we couldn't find it at all. It's only in the Vinaya scriptures. It's in the Chinese Vinaya scriptures, and also in the Tibetan areas. Even if 100 kalpas pass, the karma created will not perish. When causes and conditions meet, one will personally receive the karmic result. When they translated in ancient times, it was slightly different. When his causes and conditions meet, or when causes and conditions converge, the karmic result will be experienced by oneself. So this everyone probably understands quite clearly. Therefore, in this entire world, whatever good or bad karma we create, it won't just disappear randomly. But many people in the world now don't understand this point, which is very pitiful. This point is also a loss for humanity, but some people do truly understand, especially if they believe in Buddhism. They still have their own realization, or through education from others, there are also people who understand. If this is the case, actually for oneself, for all lifetimes, neither good nor bad karma will perish. Now, that Tongren Tang company, Tongren Tang can also be considered today as, although it's now probably a state-owned enterprise, it should still be a century-old enterprise. Basically, in between, there haven't been major changes. In some books, it's said that at the very beginning, that owner of Tongren Tang, or its founder, was a believer in Buddhism. At the very beginning, he originally wanted to pass the imperial examination himself. He didn't pass, so later he thought to use doing good deeds to help worldly people. Then he prepared to open a traditional Chinese medicine shop. In the process of preparing Chinese medicine, there was a medicine that required gold to prepare, requiring gold as an ingredient. Then he took his own family's gold jewelry, and used them himself to prepare the medicine. At this time, his relatives told him, "You're not doing business. If you're doing business, if you really add gold like this, you probably won't even recover costs. For anyone doing business, you just make a good advertisement saying it contains gold, and that's enough. Then, in the preparation process, you shouldn't add so much." Later he said, "No matter what kind of karma, once created, it won't perish. If I create the cause of good or plant the seed of good, it will definitely ripen into good karmic results, so I'm unwilling to use other methods in between." He added real pure gold inside. Because of this reason, probably the quality and all aspects were good. Later, many enterprises, after several decades, basically all went bankrupt. this phenomenon, but his quality has always been very good. Now it's also them. Of course, now these people may have changed several generations, but their overall style, tradition, including the quality of the medicines inside, domestically speaking, are quite trusted. Of course, how it is now specifically, I'm also not too clear. I'm not advertising here. I don't know them, have no connection. But honestly, among worldly enterprises or any group, some are very sincere in their affairs. They don't care what happens behind the scenes, don't care what happens openly. According to a sincere heart from within, a very sincere, pure heart, they begin to act. In this way, many such karmic results may appear in this very life. Some may appear in future lives. So such rules of karmic cause and effect are also extremely rare. There's a scripture called the Udāna Sūtra. It seems Shihu or someone translated it during the Song dynasty. But what was translated during the Song dynasty compared with another version, that one is more famous. Originally, many people asked if I could teach it. Inside it teaches many Buddhist merits, including whatever good deeds we do, the merit is described as such and such. Just like when we study the Lotus Sutra or Shurangama Sutra, actually, no matter which Buddhist scripture, the merit is all very great. But I don't know if I can manage to teach it. But in any case, inside it also says, if one creates good karma, there will be joyful results. If good karma is created, joyful results. If one creates unwholesome karma, one will experience suffering results. If such unwholesome karma is created, one experiences bitter results. This principle that good brings good results, actually worldly people also verbally acknowledge it, but what's truly taught in Buddhist scriptures has such profound meaning that they may not all understand it. So here it also teaches, the other day, I think in my last class regarding one who breaks precepts, it's better to swallow burning iron balls than to enjoy the offerings of faithful donors. One who breaks precepts shouldn't enjoy them. At that time, I used a scriptural citation in Tibetan. Later, I remembered that I seem not to have translated it into Chinese. Of course, the wording inside isn't translated word for word, but the first scriptural citation I used says that as a person who breaks precepts, even if they take one step on the Sangha's ground or regarding their food and drink, if they eat one bowl or one mouthful, this is wrong livelihood and will lead to falling into hell. I use such a scriptural citation, and there's another one. The source of that scriptural citation isn't easy to translate. There's another scriptural citation which seems to be from the Sutra of Admonitions to Bhiksus. In there it says, some people's discipline brings happiness, some people's discipline brings suffering. Those with discipline are happy, those who break discipline suffer. In that part of the last class, at that time I quoted it in Tibetan, but later in that process I told a joke in between and then forgot to translate it. I'll supplement it here. Whenever karma accumulates at that time, one experiences torment. Others also suffer distress, and distress becomes the norm. This verse, mainly the commentary, explains, at that time King Prasenajit and King Ajatashatru, the two of them for a long time were mutually at odds. Later, King Ajatashatru, also known as enemy before birth, he began doing many harmful things to King Prasenajit, doing many things detrimental to him, including seizing his herd of elephants. His herd of elephants was seized. Later, this matter was discussed everywhere. Probably at that time when countries warred, elephant herds, horse herds, these were mutually seized, not like now. This matter, later, the bhikshus already told the Buddha about it. The Buddha at that time said, "May all be victorious." May all be victorious doesn't mean wishing either of the two kings to be victorious, but rather that truth should be victorious, that they shouldn't continuously be involved in war. Later, the two of them formally fought, King Ajatashatru and King Prasenajit. The two countries began fighting. After fighting at that time, this King Prasenajit captured King Ajatashatru alive. Later he brought him before Shakyamuni Buddha. He told the Buddha, saying this King Ajatashatru, actually I haven't done anything to harm him. We should have been long-term friends because our fathers, King Ajatashatru's father, were all good friends. In this way, I still don't want to act like this, but he continuously treats me in such and such bad ways. Now I'm prepared not to let him go. He probably wanted to harm him, just like a prisoner of war now. At that time, the Buddha advised him, if you act this way, actually it's not good for yourself and not good for others. Then he asked them to reconcile. Then the Buddha taught this verse. Now Ukraine and Russia, Trump should teach them a 4-line verse. But his 4-line verse, even 100 lines probably wouldn't work. When the Buddha was in the world, it was like this, because this principle, it seems in our commentary, this explanation isn't quite, there's a bit, because in some places in the commentary, it's words, probably at that time, I don't know if there were also other versions when translating that appeared slightly different from the verses. The literal meaning should be like this. If one creates bad karma, you may think you're happy before death, and after death it doesn't matter. If you think this way, actually, this is also wrong. Creating bad karma for the individual and for others, for oneself and for others, is all bad. Why say this? Whenever karma accumulates, at any time, if the good or bad karma you've created, here mainly bad karma, if bad karma accumulates because this karmic condition hasn't been eliminated, if bad karma continuously accumulates, at that time one experiences torment. It's just a matter of the length of time. This person will definitely experience this bad karmic result, will definitely experience torment and suffering. Moreover, not only does creating bad karma this way harm oneself, others also suffer distress. Just like earlier, if King Prasenajit himself created bad karma, and others also created bad karma, at first perhaps they began fighting, created bad karma in various ways. Later, if King Ajatashatru also continuously sentences him to death or harms him, others are also very miserable. Actually, Buddhism is truly a teaching of peace for self and others, a supremely lofty spirit. Everyone should also know this. So what's said here is, if creating bad karma this way, it's endless. Oneself also experiences torment. Others also suffer. In this way, way, this distress has already become the norm. This suffering is completely a case of when will revenging wrongs with wrongs ever end? Continuously endless. It seems in the commentary it says that when the Buddha went to the hell realms, some hell beings prayed to him. The Buddha then showed them the hell guards before them and taught them about karmic connections over lifetimes, a story of mutual retribution to give them instruction. But this, with the preceding and following text, doesn't connect especially well. But perhaps I didn't read it clearly. You can all look at it later. Actually, what's said here is, in our daily life, you hate me, I hate you. In this way, you may do things to harm me, and I begin doing things to harm you. Then you retaliate again. In this way, continuously, both experience various sufferings. Not only in this life do we mutually harm each other. Now in the world there are many, including some domestic violence in families, and also between people, including between humans and animals. It's also like this. If I kill an animal, in the next life it becomes a human. I become an animal and it kills me. Or just like what we taught before, the relationship between King Virudaka and the Shakya clan, this kind of relationship. I often, when going to some seaside places, see those fishermen, everyday groups and groups of especially many, especially now with advanced technology. Previously it was casting a fishing net, then catching some, but now it's not like that. There are especially large machines for catching fish, day and night, especially when staying by the sea at night. At night they keep the lights on continuously. At night they continuously catch fish, catch fish, catch fish. Then during the day they come to rest, because during the day sometimes tourist boats go everywhere. They interfere with that. On the surface there are some other sounds going to travel, to play, especially many beings by the sea. Truly sometimes when you look, wow, everyone feels the seaside is so wonderful, like heaven. During the day, people take photos wearing all kinds of beautiful clothes. But actually, on one side, outwardly, everything is very nice, but a little later at the dining table, many. Some eat live fish, some eat live frogs, some eat snakes. Especially these people living by the sea, it seems from childhood they're already accustomed. For most people, these sea creatures, they don't consider them living beings. They completely feel this is no different from cabbage or radishes. That's their concept. They've never had this education and don't have a fearful mind. So sometimes there truly is a bit. Originally, when His Holiness went to the Indian Ocean, the first time he went, at first His Holiness took photos, felt it was very nice. Later, several children began eating live fish, and His Holiness was especially amazed, feeling, I don't know if I've mentioned this before. In any case, at that time he also said, oh, these people creating karma this way, their whole lives is also especially frightening. So what we're saying here is, if we truly act this way, just as taught in the Buddha's scriptures, the net of karma is extremely vast. The net of karma is very vast. It's larger than our current telecom and mobile networks. Now, telecom and mobile networks in places without signal, without cell towers, simply can't receive anything. But the net of karma isn't like that. Wherever a being's mind stream is, it continuously follows like a shadow, never leaves. So it's best that when we create bad karma, we don't let it become a habitual behavior. If it becomes habitual, it becomes taken for granted. Then repeatedly, one also perhaps gradually, such a person's mind stream becomes accustomed, habit becomes natural. Then for them, creating bad karma becomes a very normal thing. So we don't hope to become like this, and throughout all lifetimes also don't want to become like this. Even if we become beggars, we also don't want to become beings who kill. Previously in some books, such aspirations were also made in this way.
Nanabdati Mamdran Yi, Shipe, Mata Shiba Yi, Digbelekin, Droata, Parotona Shibaran Yer.
Foolish people don't contemplate. My karma will definitely follow my form. When bad karma ripens, they'll come to know it themselves in the next life. At that time, it seems there were also some bhiksus and also some ordinary blind people who didn't know the principles of cause and effect in this regard. The Buddha taught them specifically, including the following about falling into hell, teaching 5 verses. Actually, at that time, seeing some foolish people who didn't understand regarding cause and effect, especially very serious regarding killing, it was mainly taught for these people. Now, foolish people simply don't know the danger of karma and its results, or its advantages and disadvantages. What do worldly people now lack? They don't lack food, they don't lack this, except for individual places like Africa. Many people don't lack anything, but they just lack the concept of cause and effect. Probably in the future people will lack it more and more. Previously, in our Tibetan areas, regarding the concept of cause and effect, everyone was very good, but generation after generation, finally quite a portion of young people going to some cities, after going to the cities, are completely with people who don't believe in cause and effect. Almost exactly the same, including their speech, their expressions, their way of walking. Many behaviors have degenerated. In their mind streams, there simply won't be the concept of adopting and discarding cause and effect. If this is absent, what will people become? Perhaps from our perspective, this person is still lacking something. Here, foolish people never consider that my karma follows me. Although my body perishes, this karma not only follows me in this life, but throughout all lifetimes continuously follows me. There's a special concept of caution. Previously, those old practitioners we saw, old masters, their words, truly regarding karmic cause and effect, this kind of fear and dread, or carefulness, this mindset of attention is completely different from any other behavior. So probably many of us may not all be like this. These foolish people simply won't, oh, there's karmic retribution. Whatever I do, this karma follows me. This follows me. No matter where I go, whether ascending to heaven or descending to hell, as long as this karma hasn't been eliminated, it won't let me go. They don't have such an especially strong concept. Now when this bad karma is about to ripen, they'll come to know it themselves in the next life, because now they themselves don't know. When creating karma, they simply don't know. If they don't know when creating karma, gradually, the karma they've created, perhaps in the 3 lower realms or in other worlds, has ripened. The ripened fruit of this karmic force has matured. When the ripened fruit itself matures, one cannot escape. At this time, they themselves may know. Of course, some portion of people may know, but some portion simply don't know. When suffering now, they just blame heaven and others. Other than that, they probably still won't know it's their own doing bringing their own suffering. They won't know. They think this is some kind of unfair treatment. They may complain about this, complain about that. So the concept of cause and effect, truly coming to recognize it through various methods, is all very good. However, many people now truly regarding the concept of cause and effect, it's becoming increasingly shallow. I think we monastics and practitioners should be very good in this regard, especially like living at a Buddhist academy, living in some relatively pure practice centers. People's views naturally, imperceptibly, finally, originally coming from a group that doesn't believe in cause and effect, finally in a group that believes in cause and effect, after staying for 10 or 8 years, basically oneself also. Some have acquired this correct view of cause and effect. It truly happens this way. And also perhaps some phenomena that verify cause and effect naturally through other means, they've also obtained proof. Previously in our Tibetan areas, there were many dakinis who were between the yang world and yin world, equivalent to being like communication agents. For example, travel into hell realms, these are called daylok, or returned from death. Some people acknowledge them, some don't, but in any case, for a group of people, they still play a big role. Moreover, previously in some history, there truly were some, including Sechung Khandro and that one and so on. There are many. In Golok, it's also quite famous. Many masters also recognize them. There are also such cases, not only in Tibetan areas, but also in Han Chinese areas. There are also similar cases. Zhang Taiyan, he was during the Republican era also a thinker, a scholar. His learning was still very remarkable, also a politician, very formidable. But from looking at his writings, there are often many accounts of, he went to this, what we call the intermediate state. His way of phrasing is slightly different, but such experiences are quite numerous. Previously, I've also used them in some other books. For a period, I was curious and specifically looked through his related, relatively interesting works. I've browsed them. Among them, one relates to Yuan Shikai at that time. Regarding Yuan Shikai, those of you who've studied should probably know there's a Yuan Shikai who's used as a negative example, including the relationship between him and Sun Yat-sen, quite complex, many matters. The presidential position he held at that time, also for a relatively short time, 3 days or how long. Now, at that time it was because he was a scholar, he had a rather sharp tongue. If he wasn't careful with his speech, finally Yuan Shikai imprisoned him. During the imprisonment process, he often had some out-of-body experiences, then going to the intermediate state. Once he went to the intermediate state, and of course this process I won't elaborate on here, when he went there, he encountered many in the intermediate state realm, including many people from the Tang and Song dynasties. These people he was familiar with. He interacted with them. Later he thought he might want to go look at the hell realms. He wanted to communicate with the Lord of the intermediate state about this, finally to abolish the hell world, that it shouldn't exist. He thought that probably hell was equivalent to our prison. Regarding the prison, if he saw the judge, he could abolish it, abolish all these prisons. He originally wanted to go, but when he arrived at the hell realms, according to his state of realization, he simply couldn't see anything, because he didn't have that karma. If he didn't have that karma, he couldn't see any external phenomena. Finally, he had even more faith in cause and effect. Actually, these hell realms, hungry ghost realms, they're not as we imagine, that we can abolish them at will. They're truly a manifestation of being's karmic force. At that time, it seems his situation was equivalent to some of our great masters traveling to some pure lands. At night, 2 attendants would come to receive him. At night, he would often leave his body and go there. Then during the day, he would return, probably receiving this punishment continuously. These processes of his are all recorded in writing. Previous great masters of the Han tradition also frequently used them, because his accounts have relatively some persuasive power. Why? Because it wasn't a Buddhist, a lay practitioner, a monk, someone like that speaking. It was truly someone involved in high-level politics, such a writer, such a thinker. His account, so many in academic circles consider. Why did Zhang Taiyan say this? Some people, of course, say he himself was engaging in superstition, including some people later also saying this. But in any case, at that time, it seems their relationship with Yuan Shikai, when he was imprisoned for a month, Yuan Shikai also died or something. In any case, politics and history are quite complex. When we teach the Dharma, we generally don't involve these aspects. His Holiness also, each time when asked about such matters from outside, regarding these aspects, His Holiness would still use especially skillful methods to avoid them. So we generally, regarding matters involving history and these aspects, basically also don't participate. But sometimes for us to look at some books, it's still necessary. I also hope that those of us here, first, past history is very important. If we look at past history, in our mind streams we can give rise to the view of impermanence. This is very important. At that time they were so attached to politics, position, fame. Now there's nothing left. Second aspect, the entire vicissitudes of human society and the various changes in our world. Regarding many things happening now, one can also easily understand. For one's own life, I feel it's very helpful. So seeing some things related to history, related to various internal and external theories, sometimes looking more, studying more, is still very meaningful. I see from our recent observations, for those of us here, I also don't know what books you like to read, but it seems some people are probably the type who love to study because the overall situation, whether one's own wisdom in many aspects, if one loves to study, now studying is very convenient, truly very convenient. Previously wanting to read books but unable to find books, to buy books, to borrow books. This was also very difficult. Now, as long as one has time, has energy, has interest reading books, whether Chinese, Tibetan, whatever, it's also especially convenient for those who study. This is also a very good thing. So I think here what was taught, saying foolish people regarding karma, truly don't contemplate, don't think about it. Once cause and effect ripen, they may then understand. They may understand in the next life, or even in this life they understand. Some people create much bad karma and finally become ill. They themselves may reflect. They themselves think, oh, I think recently that young American man died 31 years old, but I thought the other day if he hadn't died, he was shot in the throat. Finally he couldn't speak. He may have been saying, guns are good, shooting is meaningful. He was saying this when, if he had lived, he might have reflected. At that time, using my mouth, my body to say this perhaps wasn't so good. If he had faith, or if someone told him, perhaps he would think this way. Generally, people at first when creating bad karma don't know, but finally when bearing the karmic result, some people know, some people probably still don't know and continue creating bad karma if they're going to fall into hell. Hell beings also continuously create bad karma. Everyone should also be clear about this. In any case, we now are still fortunate to know the difference between good and evil. This point is also through the kindness of our masters. Otherwise, if the masters hadn't taught up until now, perhaps the place where you were born, if it wasn't especially prone to creating karma, that's slightly better. But if not, we would also be like other people from childhood starting, especially killing, various serious negative karmas, probably continuously. Finally, when we leave this world, the good karma we've created is insignificant. The bad karma created is mountainous. It should be like this. So if we haven't confused karma, this life should be very fortunate.
Kartif shibe mishi par dugbu lena shiba taga namjig nana tini tir narman tsaga susur
Foolish people don't understand the various bad karmas they've done. They themselves in the next world will experience the suffering of burning affliction. Here, foolish people don't know themselves. Because they're too foolish, they cannot understand. What can't they understand? The nature of the bad karma they themselves have created. Because especially some of us with education, some people themselves have a bit of worldly intelligence. In this way, they simply don't know that this karma, if creating bad karma is like eating poison, it's not immediately obvious, but actually it's especially frightening. They don't know this seriousness, they simply don't know. For this reason, finally, oneself, in the Tibetan it says once this way, but in the commentary it writes finally, oneself in the next world experiences this karmic result, including in hell or in other worlds. Only then do they know. At this time, this burning, afflicting suffering, especially if falling into the hot hells, the sufferings of those hot hells, there's also no way to share them with anyone. Moreover, the commentary also teaches that some things are probably real things you can share with others, but this karma cannot be shared with others. Not even a bit can be shared. Even the closest person cannot share it. Also, most people create karma relying on material things. This is also quite common. Previously, I forget which foreign person said that now people have been infused with a kind of especially deluding drug. What is this deluding drug? Most people in the whole world don't seek truth, only seek money. Money equals happiness. They have such a concept. Actually, this is humanity's most tragic thing. Why? Having money doesn't necessarily mean happiness. We won't speak of future lives. In this very life, rich people still feel unhappy, yet people without money think that's impossible. If you have money, you'll definitely be very happy, joyful. But actually, it's not like this. These tycoons we've seen, the world super rich, actually, if they're truly happy in their hearts, it's not brought about by relying on wealth. So whether relying on wealth, relying on fame, or relying on other worldly dharmas, if bad karma has been created, then this kind of bad karma continuously brings you an erroneous concept. Other than that, it won't bring happiness. Foolish people without wisdom don't know the right path. What their minds take pleasure in and desire are all unwholesome. It should be taught in the Maharatnakuta Sutra. As foolish people, because of their ignorance, they don't know the right path, don't know the right direction, because their minds, especially like this pleasure, that pleasure, finally they create extremely serious bad karma. Throughout all lifetimes, they cannot attain liberation, reaping what they sow. This is also very frightening. So each of us should examine our own mind streams. Have we really created bad karma or not? If we've created bad karma, how should I repent it? Then try our best to mind less of others' business. Now, many of us, we Tibetans have a saying, you don't notice a large yak on your own face, but you can spot a tiny louse on someone else's face. So every day, our own heap of mistakes we don't look at. But if others have even a tiny bit, we continuously point and criticize. Actually, this is unnecessary, especially lay people frequently observing the faults of the monastic sangha. This is completely unnecessary. Previously, when Venerable Shuyun was at Nanhua Temple, I heard that a monastic violated some of the temple's rules and precepts. Another steward began severely punishing him. Then many lay people began discussing it, saying this steward went too far, had no compassion. Also, the local Naga king couldn't bear it either, and scolded that steward. But later, Venerable Shuyun, his realization was still very high, he began scolding this Naga king and the local common people, saying, "You don't need to manage monastics' affairs. Monastics' affairs are managed by monastics. They have precepts and monastic regulations to constrain them. This isn't your business. You don't need to participate. Even if they break precepts, they're still better than you, because their initial intention in ordaining, that merit far surpasses your practicing as lay people for however many years of merit." Then he began criticizing them. So we're not saying that monastics can't be criticized by anyone, but you can also speak. But if you do speak, you truly create bad karma. If you create bad karma, only you yourself will bear it. In our earlier chapter on speech, we also taught, see if everyone has changed even a little bit. Those who previously loved speaking of others' faults, whether monastics or lay people, if you speak of others' faults from now on, be afraid. When you speak of others' faults, we taught before, when you speak of others, you yourself have already been bound. You yourself have already been tied up. It may seem as though criticize others, harm others, but actually not only can't you harm others, you're truly harming yourself. If you're a person with wisdom, why would you harm yourself? Knowingly harming yourself, this is probably unnecessary. So especially many lay groups, now including online, if there's even a tiny bit of this, because now Buddhism is quite fragile, many can't stand it. At such times, looking, this temple had an incident that one had something appear, but this truly may be perhaps true, perhaps false. We also can't analyze this well, but in any case, we, except when necessary, are very careful about some things. Especially for me personally, after studying the Karma Shataka and the Udāna Sūtra, afterward I try my best to restrain, to watch my verbal karma. But sometimes if words come out, I try my best to repent. I hope many of us should know this karma is born by oneself, ripening upon oneself, not ripening upon others. In this way, now you may think it's fine, but at a certain time, I'm afraid it won't be so easy to bear.
Ringli ki tigo the me chakpa jindo dong shiba sirp chung tak dala drabjim shiba yi gansim drive chikirve dikjinde na shupra shede.
One's own karma causes one to fall, like the suffering of being burned by fire. Foolish people with shallow wisdom make themselves their own enemy, creating various bad karmas that ripen great fruits of suffering. Here, at that time, it seems also at Jetavana monastery. At Jetavana there was a person with leprosy. Perhaps he was unhappy in his heart or something, and began speaking harsh words to the Buddha. Because of this reason, this verse was composed. The meaning is quite simple, one's own karma. If bad karma is created in this way, oneself descends downward. In this life also many things go badly. In future lives one falls. Now, this is like someone holding fire. It burns you. If you never let go, it continuously burns. You yourself experience this suffering. Similarly, as foolish people, their wisdom is very shallow. They themselves become their own enemy. Through their own actions, they become their own enemy. What does this mean? Creating various bad karmas, because they themselves create bad karma, taking no responsibility for themselves. We often say, you should be responsible for yourself, responsible for others. But if we create bad karma, actually we're not responsible for others either. For example, if you kill others' lives, you trample and destroy them. This is you're not being responsible for others' precious lives. Then you're also not responsible responsible for yourself. Some disobedient students and so on. My killing is my business, it's not yours. Actually, you yourself truly have very shallow wisdom. You think after you kill, nothing happens to you. Actually, it's not like this. Now, worldly people also, some especially disobedient people, finally end up confined in prison. At this time, they themselves discover, I've also gone to some prisons before, when I asked each person in the prison, except for extremely few individuals, they all regret it. There are a few people who feel that out in society, still having to work and all is very difficult. We'd rather stay in prison, it's better. Truly, there's a portion who deliberately, when going out into society, deliberately commit crimes, then come back again. Some have come back 3 times, 4 times, 7 times. There's an old man, 70 years old, who said, I've come back 7 times. I really don't want to graduate, but my sentence term will soon be up. This time I've been locked up for 2 more years. I'm used to it now. Prison is very comfortable, he said. This is relatively special karma. Other than that, truly, basically, everyone regrets it. So we ourselves shouldn't become our own enemy. If we ourselves become our own enemy, this is a very foolish statement. Beings wish to eliminate suffering, yet practice causes of suffering. It's also taught in the Bodhicariyavatara.
Ganzhishini Magdong Gazan Yetn of Devai. Yerman Sosur Temba Yi Lete Tang Shina La. Xin Shan Bu Sheng Ku Huan Xi Xin An Le Chen Shu. Ganzhishi Piodon Jerzam Chimayodon.
Foolish people, though seeking happiness, destroy happiness as if destroying an enemy. Beings, though seeking happiness, destroy their own peace, just like enemies completely destroying, also very pitiable, such behavior. Creating bad karma produces worry and distress, tears covering the face, weeping and wailing, ripening into various painful results. Not doing this is good. It seems there's no story. The explanation afterward isn't much. The meaning is, if this bad karma is created, sages also scold, and oneself also experiences suffering no matter what. In the commentary, it seems this is for this life, then future life suffering, this life worry and distress. But explaining it this way is also fine, or future lives are very painful, this life much weeping. Here, tears covering means tears streaming down the face. Moreover, there is specially suffering, because when suffering this pain, weeping uncontrollably, crying, making a fuss, feeling so sad, especially when some of us are sick or are controlled by others, at such times it's like this. When results ripen, whether this life or future lives, when ripening into these various painful results, it's extremely hard to bear. So don't create these bad karmas. Here it's advised, don't create these bad karmas, because if these bad karmas are created, their karmic consequences are truly very frightening. Of course, some details of karmic force we also cannot possibly know. The Buddha, we ordinary people aren't encouraged to contemplate cause and effect because it's very profound. So if we try to contemplate it, it's very difficult. But in any case, if bad karma is created, the outcome definitely won't be good. So in this life and future lives, as I just said, if you're responsible for yourself, don't create bad karma. If bad karma is created, there won't be a good outcome. Creating karma with laughter laughter and self-benefit, weeping when experiencing the result, and there's also such a saying. So this bad karma that's created in any case, finally when experiencing suffering, it's extremely painful weeping, extremely frightening. Doing good doesn't produce suffering, joyful mind, peace and happiness, ripening into various joyful results. Doing this is good. This is if we reverse it, opposite to the previous. If we create good karma, actually sages also praise it. In this life also there's happiness. Suffering won't arise, and in future lives also joy is attained, including your resources and possessions being very complete, especially joyful. Then your mind in the desire realm or above in the meditative concentrations, all will attain peace. Some people, now our minds are very joyful, very joyful. This should be from creating karma in past lives. Some, no matter what, are very miserable, all day long with a long face, sad and worried, especially suffering. Not knowing what the reason is, it seems at every moment they're worried, appearing especially sad. This especially, now there are many. Recently I've heard of many people who, because of unhappy moods, commit suicide by jumping off buildings, especially many. Including among Buddhists also. Actually, Buddhists are also people. If there's karmic force from killing in past lives, probably various suicides, various situations will all occur. So if in past lives good karma was created, you won't suffer like this. In this life, no matter where you are, recently haven't we had those who went out, some nuns and monks? The monks, they're in the same place, but some people's moods are very joyful, quite good. There's food and clothing. I practice very well here. Some people have everything complete, but still feel it's no good, even having a great negative effect on people around them. In our places here, I just heard about one place. At other practice centers, they can't find any faults. There's food, there's drink, everything's there, but they feel this place has so many trees. What if they catch fire? All day long they contemplate this matter, saying these trees are a bit different from trees elsewhere. When they catch fire, they burn very easily. But there are houses here. The surroundings also aren't, you're a person, you're not something. If there are trees around every day, their mind is uneasy. This person probably tells people around them, and everyone becomes a bit fearful. Actually, it's a very small matter, but the mind isn't happy. Some truly in prison, anywhere, still this. Some who are sick, the body isn't happy, but the mind is very joyful. Truly, there are many such situations. Buddhist scriptures also say, having planted good roots, increasing wholesome dharmas, having increased wholesome dharmas, attaining great joy. The scripture I just quoted, because of increasing good roots, first good roots are planted. After planting good roots, wholesome dharmas increase. After wholesome dharmas increase, it seems everything brings joy, everything brings happiness. The entire environment has changed. So some mental states truly do have great differences. So seeing feedback from some practice centers. This morning I heard feedback from some practice centers. Then in their minds, these reasons are very small, but for them it's a real issue. Truly, there are trees nearby, so they're very afraid, right? Then you'd have to go to perhaps like the Dzogchen grasslands, those kinds of places. That might be better. Otherwise, places with trees are quite numerous. Unsafe. In this way, at our academy also, like on the nun side, so many houses, layers upon layers. If a fire breaks out, there is still danger. But at the academy, I don't know if there are any. So many people's mental states are still related to good karma and practice, so everyone should ordinarily carry a kind of happiness. Truly, I feel practitioners are very joyful. Many things that worldly people consider extremely painful for practitioners are matters easily accomplished, not things impossible to deal with. All right, we'll stop here.
Sonam dei tamse thobanya tonani de jana pashe jirgana jirano chupan chupun solen droa droa
Bandharangara Badna Sūtra Bandharangara Badna Sūtra Bandharangara Badna Sūtra